of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend.
They once called him a music mogul, a kingmaker, the ultimate success story in hip-hop. But yesterday, that carefully polished image shattered. As Cassie Ventura took the stand in court, the truth spilled out with chilling clarity. Diddy's face reportedly turned pale as his ex-girlfriend recounted disturbing incidents so graphic, even veteran courtroom reporters were left stunned. The man who once ruled an empire couldn't hide his shock, because Cassie wasn't holding back. She revealed everything, and we mean everything, about what allegedly went on behind closed doors.
When she walked in there, Rachel, she had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak off, the freak off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21. She was young. She didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year relationship.
For decades, Sean Diddy Combs moved through the music industry like he owned it. Because in many ways, he did. He built Bad Boy Records from the ground up, transformed unknown talents into global superstars, and turned his name into a billion-dollar brand that stretched beyond music into fashion, liquor, and media. On paper, Diddy was the ultimate mogul, the blueprint for how to turn hip-hop into serious money. But behind that carefully curated image of business genius, mentorship, and red carpet perfection, something far darker may have been lurking, at least if the explosive courtroom revelations are to be believed. While Diddy graced magazine covers and commanded stages with effortless charisma, Cassie Ventura, his former girlfriend, was reportedly living a completely different reality. And yesterday, as she took the stand in court, that hidden world began to unravel in full view. The contrast was jarring. Diddy, who arrived for the second day of the hearing looking every bit the polished billionaire mogul, custom-tailored suit, flawless grooming, flanked by a high-powered legal team, seemed calm, even confident, nodding to onlookers like he was walking into a boardroom, not a courtroom. But that confidence evaporated within minutes. According to multiple witnesses, Diddy's demeanor shifted dramatically as Cassie began detailing specific events from their relationship. Gone was the swagger, the steely composure. In its place, visible discomfort, his face reportedly drained of color. He fidgeted with his tie, then his cufflinks, then simply wrung his hands. Observers described him scribbling notes at a frantic pace, handing them to his attorneys so rapidly that one lawyer had to raise a hand to slow him down. One courtroom reporter called it like watching a man lose control of his own story for the first time. Another said Diddy appeared physically ill as Cassie calmly recounted the disturbing allegations. A third noted that he repeatedly closed his eyes, as if trying to block out the words or erase what was being said. And this was just the beginning. As Cassie's testimony stretched into the afternoon, the courtroom would learn exactly why Diddy's mask began to crack. The allegations she was about to lay out weren't just personal. They were potentially career-ending. They threatened to dismantle the empire he spent decades constructing, for a man who always controlled the narrative, for someone who edited, produced, and orchestrated every public move. This was a story he couldn't spin. The truth, raw and unfiltered, was finally being told.
Some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experiences.
Yeah, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, "I know, you don't want to do it." And she said, "Oh, no, well, it's not that." But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, "He would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down." She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense table.
When Cassie Ventura took the stand, the entire courtroom fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone knew this moment was coming, but no one, not the public, not the press, not even Diddy's elite legal team, was prepared for what was about to unfold. After years of silence, years of holding back dark memories and buried truths, Cassie finally had the chance to speak. And when she did, she didn't hold back. She started slowly, almost gently. That's what made it so devastating. Cassie began by recounting how she first met Sean Diddy Combs when she was just 19 years old, a hopeful young model with dreams of a music career. He was already a powerful multimillionaire mogul, a dominant force in the entertainment world, with influence, wealth, and connections in every corner of the industry. From the very beginning, the power dynamic was unmistakable, and according to Cassie, Diddy knew exactly how to exploit it. Her testimony unfolded like a psychological thriller, slow, methodical, and haunting. At first, she spoke of what seemed like minor control issues, how he allegedly insisted on knowing where she was at all times, how he would suddenly appear if she was out with friends, how he'd question her choices and movements obsessively. But then, the details darkened. Cassie described how Diddy's control extended into her professional life, how he would allegedly threaten to shelve her music if she didn't comply with his personal demands, how he sabotaged collaborations with other artists if he felt threatened by her growing independence, and how her dreams of a music career became tools for manipulation. Then came the revelation that left the room stunned. According to court transcripts, Cassie testified that Diddy had allegedly installed tracking software on her phone without her knowledge. She claimed he would call her within minutes of arriving somewhere, already knowing where she was. She described how he gradually isolated her from friends, one by one, cutting off her support system until she had no one left but him. It was systematic, chilling, and deliberate, she claimed. The judge had to call for order 3 separate times during this portion of the testimony. Diddy, who had maintained a carefully composed exterior, reportedly began to unravel. He shook his head repeatedly, whispered harshly to his lawyers, made visible facial expressions of frustration, all in full view of the jury. Each time the judge warned him, he'd managed to stay composed for only a few minutes before slipping again. It was, as one courtroom observer described, like watching someone who's never been told no finally realize the power dynamic has shifted. Then came the moment that changed everything. Cassie pulled out her phone and handed it to her attorney. Messages, texts, and emails were projected onto a screen for the entire courtroom to see. And with them, any illusion of control Diddy may have felt evaporated. Witnesses described the look on his face as pure shock. It was clear he didn't know she still had these. There were messages where he allegedly apologized for violent behavior, others where he seemed to threaten her career if she ever spoke out. Some directly contradicted the public statements and carefully spun narratives that his PR team had pushed for years. It was no longer just her word, it was her word backed by evidence. And that, for Diddy, was catastrophic. But those messages were only the beginning. Cassie then began to detail the physical violence she allegedly endured.
Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak-off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What did the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
I thought I was going to die that night, Cassie said, her voice trembling, barely louder than a whisper. The courtroom leaned in, holding its collective breath. What she described next wasn't just shocking, it was something no one, not the press, not the fans, not even the most relentless gossip blogs, had ever heard before. This was the Four Seasons Hotel incident. Cassie explained that she had buried this moment for years, out of fear. Fear for her safety, fear for her career, fear that no one would ever believe her over a man as powerful as Sean Diddy Combs. But now, on the witness stand, with the world watching, she was finally ready to speak her truth. According to her testimony, what began as a routine industry after-party quickly spiraled into a nightmare. She told the court that Diddy became visibly enraged after seeing her talking to another music executive. His smile vanished. He grabbed her arm with such force it left visible bruises. She said he leaned in and whispered threats in her ear. Threats laced with fury, all while keeping up a pleasant public facade for everyone else at the event. Then came the moment that chilled the courtroom. Cassie testified that Diddy dragged her through the hotel lobby toward the elevators. She said she cried, struggled, and begged him to stop, causing enough of a commotion that a hotel security guard stepped in. But once the guard recognized Diddy, everything changed. He just asked if everything was okay, Cassie told the court. And when Mr. Combs said yes, he walked away. He didn't even look at me. He didn't even ask if I was okay. Then came the photos. Her attorney presented a series of images Cassie had taken the morning after the incident. Photos of herself, shaken, bruised, injured. A split lip, redness on her neck, finger-shaped marks on her arms. These weren't glossy, professional pictures. They were raw, taken in a bathroom mirror, blurry and dimly lit, and that made them all the more haunting. Cassie told the jury she took the photos because she knew no one would believe her without proof. Diddy's legal team erupted in objections. They argued the photos weren't properly authenticated, that they could be from anything, that they weren't submitted during discovery. But the judge wasn't swayed. Every objection was overruled, and the photos were shown on screens around the courtroom. The jury's reaction was instant and visceral. One female juror covered her mouth in horror. 2 male jurors turned away, unable to look at the images. Another juror in the back row was seen scribbling in her notebook, her hands visibly shaking. This was the moment, the bombshell no one expected. The Four Seasons incident had never appeared in earlier filings or pre-trial statements. Diddy's legal team had no idea it was coming. There were no talking points, no prepared spin. The panic on the faces of his attorneys was unmistakable. And Cassie wasn't done. She testified that Diddy, in a violent rage, hurled a champagne bottle at her head, missing her by inches and shattering it against a wall. She said he trashed the hotel suite, smashing a lamp, flipping a table, punching a hole through the bathroom door. But perhaps most disturbing of all, Cassie claimed he kept her trapped in that hotel room for more than 48 hours. No phone, no way out. Just threats, clear and terrifying, about what would happen if she tried to call for help. As this harrowing testimony came to an end, the courtroom turned its attention to one person, Diddy. His reaction wasn't just about disbelief. It was defining. In that moment, with the jury, the press, and the public watching, the mask slipped. This was no longer just a high-profile trial. It had become something far bigger, a reckoning. And as the dust settled from Cassie's words, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't just the turning point in the trial. It might be the moment that reshapes Diddy's entire legacy.
I think what the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person, with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend, who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, you know, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today, she broke down.
It was the moment no one in that courtroom would ever forget. Diddy, the man who built an empire on his ability to stay composed, calculated, and completely in control, lost it. Publicly, completely, and irreversibly. The mask he had worn for decades, the cool, smooth-talking mogul image that had defined him, began to crack. Then it shattered, and what was underneath wasn't just vulnerable, it was volatile. This is a man who has spent decades mastering his image. The untouchable businessman, the unflappable power broker, the industry titan who never blinked, no matter the pressure. But as Cassie's testimony dug deeper and deeper into the darkest parts of their relationship, something in Diddy visibly shifted. Veteran court reporters, people who've covered trials involving A-list celebrities, billion-dollar deals, even murder cases, said they had never seen a transformation so stark. The confident icon who walked into court that morning was gone. What remained was a man who looked cornered, rattled, and deeply afraid. Cassie's words kept landing like punches. With every new allegation, Diddy appeared to physically shrink in his chair. His legal team was clearly scrambling. Eyewitnesses, sitting behind them, said one attorney kept placing a hand on Diddy's arm, whispering to calm him down. At one point, someone reportedly slid him a handwritten note with just 3 words. In all caps, "Stay calm now." It didn't work. Things escalated dramatically when Cassie recounted an alleged incident at Diddy's Hamptons estate. As she described what happened, Diddy slammed his hand down on the courtroom table. So hard, it echoed off the walls. The judge immediately stopped proceedings. "Mr. Combs, if you cannot control yourself, I will have you removed from this courtroom," the judge warned, voice firm and sharp. For a tense moment, it genuinely looked like Diddy might be escorted out of his own trial. Throughout her testimony, witnesses saw Diddy shaking his head repeatedly, mouthing, "That's not true," every time Cassie detailed something particularly damning. It was as if he forgot that a jury was watching his every move, that this wasn't a music video set or a PR-managed interview. This was real, and the power dynamic had flipped. The control he allegedly held over Cassie for years, her career, her relationships, her freedom, was now gone. She was finally speaking her truth. And for the first time, Diddy couldn't mute her mic, couldn't call in his crisis team, couldn't delete what was being said. He just had to sit there and take it, and then came the breaking point. Cassie testified that Diddy had allegedly threatened her family if she ever exposed what happened between them. But it wasn't just her word against his. She had recordings, real audio files, of Diddy's voice, making those exact threats. The courtroom fell completely silent as her lawyer pressed play. Before the second sentence could finish, Diddy exploded. He shot up from his chair, pointed at Cassie, and shouted across the courtroom, "You know that's not how it happened." It took 3 of his attorneys to physically pull him back into his seat. He kept trying to speak over the recording, raising his voice, visibly unraveling in front of the jury, the judge, and the entire gallery. The judge had no choice. He immediately called for a recess. But the damage had been done. Everyone saw. It, the man who had spent his life branding himself as untouchable, had just shown the world how incredibly touchable he really was. As court officers led Diddy out for the recess, he looked like a shadow of the mogul who'd arrived earlier that day. The mask was gone. The power was gone. The control was gone. But just when the courtroom thought it had heard everything, Cassie dropped the bombshell that changed the trial forever. She revealed she'd spent years quietly collecting and storing evidence, proof of what she claimed had really happened. Texts, emails, photos, recordings, hidden in cloud storage, offline backups, places Diddy could never reach or erase. The gallery gasped when Cassie said she had messages from other celebrities, big names, who had witnessed Diddy's behavior firsthand. These weren't distant acquaintances. These were his friends, his collaborators, his inner circle. One by one, the messages were displayed in court. A major rapper after a Grammy after-party. "You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can stay at my place if you need to." A chart-topping female pop star. "I've known him 15 years, and I've never seen him act like that. This isn't normal. Please call me." A longtime music producer who had worked closely with Diddy. "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." Diddy's face turned ghost white as each message appeared. His legal team immediately objected, claiming hearsay, improper submission, irrelevance. But the judge reviewed the messages privately and ruled against them. These messages are highly relevant. They will be admitted into evidence. The moment that ruling was made, Diddy put his head in his hands. He knew what was coming. Then came the most devastating texts of all, from Diddy himself. "I'm sorry about last night. You know how I get when I drink. It won't happen again. Whatever you need to make this right, name it. New car, new apartment, whatever you want. My lawyer can draw up the paperwork tomorrow. $2 million clean break. Don't talk about anything from the past 5 years." As these messages were read aloud, something happened in the gallery. Several people who had arrived with Diddy that morning, his entourage, his supposed supporters, quietly stood up and left, one by one, silently, unable to keep sitting behind him as the evidence mounted. By the time court adjourned for the day, Diddy was sitting nearly alone at his table. Just him and a flustered legal team. The support, the image, the illusion, it had all crumbled. Cassie Ventura didn't just tell her story, she may have rewritten Diddy's entire legacy. The evidence, the recordings, the celebrity confirmations, the photos, the text messages. It was overwhelming and undeniable. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It had become something much bigger, a reckoning. The question now isn't whether Diddy can survive this trial.